the biggest up-and-coming personal apps around AI are AI companions, boyfriends, girlfriends, partners.
Yeah, how do you see AI reshaping the future of digital skills and learning?
I don't think it's hype. This is not the NFT bubble. This is very real, and it's being embedded into every aspect of our work and personal lives. It's essential to have enough knowledge to supervise the tool's output, human in the loop. So we're not just specialists anymore. I think we're becoming ultra-generalists with AI and smart agents as our co-pilots. We're becoming these AI puppet masters. Do something you like, do it amazing, and have a 10-year goal. But also one of the greatest life lessons is to forever be a beginner and forever understand that we're in flux.
Welcome to another episode of Simple Tech Talk, where we explore the impact of AI across various businesses and industries. I'm your host, Maria Francesca Burga and Silas Brouwer.
Hello.
And today we have an incredibly exciting guest by the name of David Arnoux. David is the CEO and co-founder of Growth Tribe, a company that has been ranked as the #1 ed tech company in the Netherlands by Time magazine. Growth Tribe boosts digital skills through innovative and fast-paced learning experiences. With campuses across 6 European countries, Growth Tribe has become a leading provider of training in data science, AI, growth marketing, and UX design. David has also co-founded Toodoo and Lululemon Paris. He's an expert in growth strategies and startup development, and his work has empowered thousands to stay ahead in an ever-evolving digital landscape. David, welcome to the show. Could you kick things off by sharing what led you to start Growth Tribe?
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me. What led us, it was very circumstantial, actually, like a lot of things in business seem to happen. I have a sort of a big background in building scale-ups or startups, let's say, and in tinkering with code and UX, analytics, creative marketing, just everything involved with building businesses and building digital startups nowadays. And what happened was on my third venture, we were kind of running out of cash to pay for a technical team, pay for the tech team. So I started consulting to scale-ups and larger organizations around what was pretty important at the time, which was what used to be called growth marketing or growth hacking back in those days, which is basically what we did is we bundled a bunch of stuff together. We bundled UX, we bundled analytics, we bundled code and creative marketing and experimentation to help organizations sort of grow faster with less resources. And it turns out the basis of all this was actually rapid experimentation. So you're putting a basis of rapid experimentation behind one KPI. And on top of that, you're putting a mix, right? You're bundling UX, analytics, code, creative marketing, which usually are different functions within an organization. And so that consulting gig actually led me to meet my co-founder, Peter. And Peter was like, you shouldn't be doing consulting with this. We should start an academy. The world needs this stuff. So we started the world's first growth academy. I think it was like 9 years ago. And the idea was to put 3 people inside a business for 3 months and let them try to make them run as many experiments as possible, trying to improve one KPI. Whether it's a marketing KPI or a sales KPI, it was usually so a key performance indicator, a customer-facing KPI, usually linked to a commercial number. And so the idea there where that was interesting was we had multidisciplinary teams. So we would put a hacker, hustler, hipster, a developer, sort of designer, creative UI, and a marketeer/sales, put them together, and they would come up with experiments, backlog of experiments, and try to run those experiments in an environment that they didn't know at all, in a company that they hadn't been sort of onboarded into in a very short amount of time. And they didn't even know each other to begin with. So a lot of learnings on the cultural side and on the team dynamic side. And it's pretty funny because when we launched this, we used to joke that it was harder to get into the Growth Academy than it was to get into Harvard. I think we got 2,500 applicants and we only selected like 12 people or 15 people. And then little by little, organically, this turned into a digital training company. So we started to unbundle what we had bundled. And today we're focused on 3-4 key pillars of digital skills around data and AI, marketing growth, digital business skills, and leadership. So we're set up 9 years ago. We have 37,000 alumni now. I think we've worked with about 1,000 plus teams and companies. very strong brand presence in Benelux, but also in France, in the Nordics, and in the UK. So that's basically it. Long story short, that's how Growth Tribe started.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was curious also if there was someone who inspired you on your way.
I don't know if it's a specific individual person. It's more the accumulation of everything that's available, whether it's online or offline, is pretty inspiring. I like to read. I do like to read a lot of history. And then in terms of inspiration to start this specifically, no, I think it was everything happened really organically. I'm not really a 20-year vision type of person, unfortunately. I wish I was, but I sort of go with the flow and try to grasp opportunities and stir the pot, as we say. But I think a lot of inspiration came from, the big thinkers in these different aspects of UX, analytics, code, creative marketing. Maybe one that stands out would be Carol Dweck. She wrote the book Growth Mindset, which is potentially one of the greatest parenting books ever written, but also one of the greatest sort of life lessons is to forever be a beginner and forever understand that we're in flux and forever learners, right? Forever students of this beautiful world we live in. And if we're thinking about the economy, we live in a knowledge economy. So the greatest investment is typically knowledge and learning. The problem is, not to go too much on a tangent, is that the ROI of learning tends to be long-term. Whereas, we're trying to make ends meet, we're trying to please our boss, we're trying to hit target. So sometimes we forget to invest there in a structured way.
Yeah, okay. Also, thank you for the book recommendation. Can you repeat again from whom it is and the title?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we could get into book recommendations. This one it's pretty foundational. I would say it's Carol Dweck. It's called Growth Mindset. It's a great foundational book, that I think it came out 10, 15 years ago. And while we're at it, probably another great foundational one is Deep Work. We'll put those in the podcast notes for our listeners to delve into. That's pretty sweet. Thanks.
Yeah, you mentioned our ever-changing world and that learning is a crucial part of it. And 2 years ago, we had the very drastic change in our world. AI was introduced with ChatGPT in November 2022, if I remember correctly. Yeah, how do you see AI reshaping the future of digital skills and learning?
Okay. Yeah, so I'm excited about this. I think it's shifting everything at the moment. I don't think it's hype. This is not the NFT bubble. This is very real, and it's very porous, and it's being embedded into every aspect of our work and personal lives. Personal lives, by the way, the A16Z top 100 consumer apps report came out. It was like a month ago. Personal lives, the biggest up and coming personal apps around AI are AI companions, boyfriends, girlfriends, partners. That's the thing that's exploding. So it's becoming ubiquitous. I think that by 2028, maybe even 2027, AI is going to be as ubiquitous as the internet today. It's going to touch every department from IT to human resources. The change we're going to see in the coming 2-3 years, I think, personal opinion, will dwarf the last 30 years. If you're thinking of cloud, semiconductors, or mobile, I think it's critical to start embedding Gen AI in our workflows and in our everyday lives. I could talk about the risks and everything a little bit later. Because of course the beginning of the wave is the chance to get ahead. I don't think we're even surfing the wave yet. I think we're still waxing the surfboard, to use a surfing analogy. I think we go through 5 phases, and organizations go through 5 phases. We go through 5 phases. Industries go through 5 sort of phases. It begins with skepticism, and then there's a little bit of activation, then there's some experimentation, and then there's sort of scaling and maturity on the personal side or on the business side. I have a few predictions from everything I observe. First, I think we're going to see the rise of the ultra-generalist. I shared a little post about this pretty recently. I think we're entering this era of the ultra-generalist. So this is why, and I've been mulling over how rapidly the nature of work is changing. There was this beautiful book also called Range by David Epstein. And David Epstein argued that generalists are going to thrive in a specialized world. And with the rise of Gen AI, I think we're witnessing this firsthand. It's a new kind of knowledge worker that's emerging. There's this also pretty interesting recent BCG study, not the one that everybody was sharing a year ago. I think it's one from like a month ago, that really brought this home. Teams using Gen AI didn't just work faster, they fundamentally transformed how they operate. They completed tasks like 30, 50% quicker. They rated their output quality 20, 30% higher in quality. And you might ask me, what do they do with all that free time? More work and more creative work is what the research shows, at least. But it's more than just speed and efficiency. I mean, like, what's truly fascinating is that employees, collaborators who lacked the expertise to perform certain tasks, I was tinkering and building a fasting tracker app last night with Replit Core. I don't know how to code, and I deployed it. It's on the web now. So employees, collaborators who lack this expertise to perform certain tasks yesterday can now complete those same tasks using this technology. Now, in the research, they also carefully evaluated how Gen AI impacts non-technical workers. That's the point here, tackling technical data science tasks. And so the participants who were using the Gen AI scored on average, it was like 90% of the benchmark set by professional data scientists. 90%, and they came from nowhere. 49 or 50% improvement point. Right, I can't do the math exactly, over those not using the technology. This is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. So it's augmented with Gen AI. Ethan Mollick calls it co-intelligence, where we can code faster, craft personalized content faster with a single prompt. Not true. By the way, AI whispering, prompt engineering, it's not bullshit. It's an actual thing, getting the LLMs to do what you want them to do. I can distill hundreds of documents right now and turn it into 8 minutes fun to listen to podcast using Notebook LLM audio functionality. Unbelievable. So even in these challenging scenarios like predictive analytics, which is hard, right? You need data sets, you need to clean your data set. You need to know, are you using a regression? Are you using a neural net? Are you using a decision tree? Where both the participants and Gen AI were highly adept, the tech still served as a valuable brainstorming partner. So even for the experts. But here comes the crucial point. While Gen AI acts as this beautiful, I think they called it an exoskeleton, it doesn't reskill the user. It doesn't reskill me. Simply doing with Gen AI doesn't mean we're learning to do. We have learned to do. So we're sort of running blindly. So for any Gen AI augmented worker, for any ultra-generalist, it's essential to have enough knowledge to supervise the tool's output, human in the loop. Otherwise, you might not recognize obvious errors, and then you've got this accumulating, compounding black box, which you don't totally understand. Now, imagine if we combine this with the use of smart agents, right? Which, of course, you know about these AI systems that can autonomously, or let's say semi-autonomously, perform tasks, learn from data, and even make decisions. So this isn't just about individual productivity. I think it's reshaping also team dynamics, and it's going to reshape organizational structures. This technology is becoming a, let's call it a capability multiplier. It allows us to break down silos and to cross these traditional boundaries in our work. And also that builds empathy, right? Within work, I understand other functions better. So we're not just specialists anymore. I think we're becoming ultra generalists with AI and smart agents as our co-pilots. I'd like to think of ourselves as AI puppet masters. We're becoming these AI puppet masters, wielding wide and deep knowledge across domains. Ultra generalists, where knowledge becomes readily available. So what becomes important in this new world, scary new world? What's important is taste. Do you have good taste? Creativity. Can you actually think of a good way to plug all these things together? Understanding others, understanding the customer. Although now they have this tool called syntheticulosers.com that allows you to do customer interviews without talking to customers. And scarily enough, the results are scaringly accurate when you compare it to real world results. Systems thinking. Very, very important. These are going to be more important than ever. Taste. I can't stress enough this notion of taste, although maybe it'll develop taste as well. And this is happening right now. It's really happening at the moment. The thing is that it's not evenly distributed. So as just like financial literacy or just like any new wave, there's the early adopters. So it's like a typical bell curve, right? Bell curve distribution, where you've got this sort of early adopters, and then you'll have the laggards. And that's an issue. That's definitely an issue because the gap in performance is going to widen. It's going to spread between the people riding the wave and adopting this and being curious and using it. And it tends to be the same sort of self-directed learners that are very curious, that have a growth mindset, that have personality trait conscientiousness. One of the 5 ocean personality traits tends to be people who are high on conscientiousness, and it's not 100% of the population. It's not even 50. It's not even 30 or 20. It's potentially 5 or 10. So I think that's also a big deal, and it's big responsibility from everyone, whether it's government or corporations, but also individuals and even parents to some extent, to understand what's happening, to understand how to leverage it, where not to leverage it, to understand the technology, the ethical risk, the legal risk, the compliance risks, the limitations, to be able to use it, but also to spread the word. And I feel like it's more and more our mission to democratize this. Now, democratize is a big word because we're not a nonprofit, but to make it accessible. Yeah.
Pero, that's a very interesting insight also on the rise of the generalist in the upcoming era with AI. And I was wondering as well, how do you see AI really shape the way we collaborate across borders? Having been to various countries and doing business in various countries and operating with Growth Tribe across various countries, how do you think AI might also shift the way we collaborate across borders? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so everything's readily translatable, and not just from a language point of view, but also from a cultural point of view. So those were, what was it, Hofstede? He had this ranking on, cultural differences across countries, etc. We're capable of plugging that into any system now. So if you're doing outreach, if you're trying to discuss with somebody, whether it's by email or on asynchronous tools, you can cook that into how you communicate with someone, because it already has that understanding. I would say more broadly, this might be the third or the fourth thing, let's say, that gets impacted. I think before that, there is the risk of standardization of communication and standardization of content creation. That's the risk, because you know how like fashion has become standardized internationally to a very large extent, because we're starting to get the same sort of influences across the board. That I'm worried that might also happen the more we start to rely on these tools. There was a funny anecdote of somebody who was sitting in a plane the other day and looking at a consultant from a large firm and just looking at the computer, and basically that person was writing the entire report with GPT-01 preview, right? And that's probably not just happening here, right? It's probably happening in every country. So I think that there's the risk of standardization of what we put out and how we communicate and what we communicate. Now, there's barriers that are being built now between sort of Asia and the Western world, also from a geopolitical and compliance point of view. So maybe those two can, to a certain extent, stay separate. I'm a little bit worried that, this standardization will make things a little bit less creative and interesting. And that can be thwarted. That can be solved, again, if we learn to leverage these tools, understand their limitations, and really make them ours.
And I actually have another question to something you said before. It might be that we also cut it here and just add it to what you said before. I was curious what exactly you meant with taste as it came to future skills. Could you elaborate on that a bit more?
Oh, that's a tough one. So taste is, do you have good taste? It's like reading a book about beauty, right? Or about, it's very subjective, but do you have a taste that will appeal to others? I'm really thinking in on the content side and on sort of the building products that people love. Human in the loop means you are the guardrail for what the output is. So we still have a little bit input on what goes into the system and what we select as being the output, whether it's a user interface, whether it's a book, whether it's an image, whether it's a piece of text that we want to share internally or externally or an email. So we are still the human guardrail for now. So that taste is, do I have taste to select what goes into the system, what the input of information and of data and instructions that's going in, and to select what the output I like is. Okay, I don't need to fine tune this anymore. I don't need to prompt this anymore. This is exactly how I wanted it to be. So it's just really about aesthetic taste.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I was also wondering, do you see any kinds of challenges that will come with AI? Because you've mentioned the huge impact AI will have and people adopting AI. Now, I was, for instance, thinking, okay, all these AI tools, they're quite energy consuming. So we might run into issues there. Then there are other things like, okay, AI is hallucinating. What kind of challenges do you see with AI for businesses and individuals?
Yeah, so on the energy front, I would say that I was reading the other day that the entire tech industry is responsible for 5% of global CO2 emissions. So AI is probably a small drop in that one. So when it comes to carbon emissions, I would go somewhere else to look for a guilty party. I'd go to cement and construction. Sometimes this gets too political. So the risks, I don't know, what was the second one? Oh yeah, hallucinations. I think hallucinations are going to drop severely. I think we're already at like 96, 97%. Let's see. O1 preview is already pretty good. IQ is already really high. Let's give it a couple of years and it'll hallucinate a lot less. And then to tackle hallucination, it's about fine tuning. And you can build RAGs, for example, which still hallucinate. So to tackle hallucination also, it goes back to we still need to understand what we're doing and what we're saying and have taste and understand the output. No, I think a lot of let me go first into the education space. Because I'm in the education space. I think a lot of the problems that we already had in my space will remain the same. Let me expose a little thesis, just 2 seconds. So there's a lot of things that are spreading fast in the education space. AI tutoring is spreading fast, making these personalized education more accessible. So you've got AI tutors that can adapt to how each person learns, customized feedback. And before, getting this level of personalization on a large scale was really tough. But now this AI delivers these tailored instructions to millions, and you see the tutoring companies' valuations going down. Now with these advancements, what's beautiful is knowledge is even more at our fingertips. These Gen AI models, they provide instant answers, detailed explanations, et cetera, et cetera. But the fundamental issue in education are still the same. So I'm talking about this gap in understanding again. One big challenge is motivating people to actually sit down and learn. Complacency, lack of motivation, they can still get in the way, no matter how advanced the tools become and how perfect the tools become. Just having sophisticated AI tutors, it doesn't automatically give people the discipline or the desire to learn effectively. So I think that's one big risk. One small percentage are proactive learners, self-directed learners, but most folks, they need external motivation or structured environments. That's why the MOOCs failed, by the way, the massive course platforms. That's why their completion rates have been historically low. And so when you think of that, you also start thinking about what the other risks are for those who are using it. So once you can actually convince somebody to start using it. So on the personal side and on the organizational side, there's tons of risks. The risk of bias is huge because a lot of these models were trained on limited groups of individuals and that is maybe not diverse enough. Again, you've got this risk of standardization of thought. Then at the organizational level, you have so many risks. So many risks. You've got compliance risks like legal penalties, things like reputational damage. You've got risks around the EU AI Act, so fines and penalties, which is still really murky waters. Litigation costs. There's even geopolitical risks now. If you're using the Alibaba model and you're sharing proprietary information with it, are you sharing information with China? Are you at risk of legal risk with the USA because you're sharing information that's linked to defense with China without knowing it? So many, many risks, and that's why it's so important. This is the next 5-10 years. It's going to be this incredible balancing act of the philosopher and the developer, and of the lawyer and the innovator. So it's a balancing act between legal compliance and speed and innovation. And it's going to be a very, very tight rope, and we're going to make mistakes, and really weird stuff is going to come out of it. But I am a human enthusiast. I really believe in the human race, although we make very big mistakes. And I just truly, truly believe that we'll end up doing the right thing, and that we'll learn to adapt and to use this for good, or at least I hope.
I was also now hearing you being very excited about AI. I was very optimistic about AI. I was wondering, do you have an AI tool that you recently discovered and that you also are very excited about? Do you want to maybe share one or two that you've discovered?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can share. Let me share 5. I'll go fast. So first one I would say is, if you're on a Mac, it's using Raycast. Raycast allows you to talk to all of the LLMs in a chat rather than having to go back and forth. You can also do this with O.com, for example. But Raycast, it just lives there, so you can talk to Perplexity, and you can talk to Claude, and you can talk to Mixtral, and you can talk to all of them from one box. One tool I'm also really excited about is syntheticusers.com. Although their pricing went up, you can conduct synthetic customer interviews that mimic real life. I'm really, really excited about Replit. Replit allows you to code with a coding copilot and deploy. So if you're not a coder, you go on, you're talking to Replit and you code as you go, you debug as you go, and you just talk together. It's like having a senior developer next to you. There's also Mind Studio is a really nice one. It allows you to create sort of automation workflows. And then there's two really fun ones that I think people should just start playing around with this afternoon because it's really simple. One is called napkin.ai, where you just put a bunch of like bullet points of thoughts you have and it turns it into an image. Much better than the diagrams we're getting on through DALL-E, or the diagrams that we were getting on Claude Artifacts, for example. So that's napkin.ai. And then the big crowd pleaser, and that's absolutely amazing, is I listen to a lot of audio. It's Notebook LM's audio feature. So it's notebooklm.google.com. And just put a website into it and let it generate an audio podcast just from your website, for example. Or you put a big, boring piece of research, you stick it in there and it creates a 7 or 8 minute audio recording podcast between two people that go back and forth. And the AI stutters. It stutters. So that's unbelievable. It just feels so real. Brave New World, very scary. And then last one that I've been playing around with this week is Argil.ai. It's like HeyGen, but a bit cheaper. You can create your own AI avatar. So I'm training my AI avatar at the moment. Brave New World, right? Aldous Huxley, George Orwell. Here we come.
the day has arrived.
Yeah, we're here. We're in the eye of the cyclone. We just don't know it.
Wow, these are some interesting tools that we'll recommend also to explore for our listeners in the podcast notes. Now, I'd like to ask you also a question as someone who's founded multiple successful companies. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs who want to integrate AI into their business models? And what pitfalls should they avoid? And what opportunities should they seize?
Yeah, so I'll give 3. The first one is the most important one. It's imagine a 2x2 matrix in your brain. And on one side, you have impact on the y-axis, and on the x-axis, you have ease. And try to go for something that's really high impact and that's quite simple, if possible. So typically, we see 3 use cases. We see AI can be a research partner. It can be about process automation, or it can be about customer engagement and customer interaction. So choose one of those 3 where the biggest impact is, plus the ease. Just don't do tech for the sake of tech or AI for the sake of AI. Tackle a really, really impactful, interesting use case. I would still advise to maybe go for something internal to begin with. So if you make a mistake, the blast radius is not too big. That's number 1. Number 2, leadership better get it, or else you're screwed. You got to get it as leadership, or else you're just going to see the risk side and not understand the limitations and the possibility of the tech. So train yourself, tinker yourself. If you're a leader, if leadership doesn't get it, then it won't work. This is really I don't believe in the bottom-up approach for this. Then you get a bunch of shadow AI and all that stuff. I think it's very much top-down. Let's just start with those 2. Just really start with something that has high impact and pretty good ease. 2x2 matrix. Build a big backlog of everything you could be doing to enhance it, and then just plot it and go for the stuff that's at top right. Second one is understand it yourself. Actually, I would say the third one is you need to upskill and reskill your workforce. They can become 50-60% more efficient and more creative thanks to this tech. Right now they're using the tech, and they're using what we call shadow AI, where they're doing it under the radar because they're scared of getting in trouble or making a mistake. So you need to set rules and guidelines and guardrails, and you need to control this because the cat's out of the sleeve or out of the box.
Awesome. Now, in terms of final words of wisdom and advice that you'd like to pass down on to entrepreneurs, are there any final last words, David, that you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I don't know. Life is good. Enjoy it. Just maybe long-termism. Yeah, I think long-termism. It's really easy to try to chase rapid success. We see it on TikTok. We see it on YouTube. We only see the headlines of people who are succeeding. That doesn't really exist. Sorry, try to have a 10-year vision, and don't try to make a quick buck, and try to really have impact and do something you love, because there's no overnight success. It's really true. So do something you like, do it amazing, and have a 10-year goal. you won't have a 2-3 year success. That doesn't really exist. It exists in a few really rare cases, but most cases it's a 10-year investment. So do something fantastic, be in there for the long run. And that's also how you approach work, deep work. Scarcest thing nowadays, competitive advantage, the capability to do deep work for 5-6 hours nonstop, on one specific subject or task. Super rare nowadays, super rare. Block some deep work time. And so long-termism, consistency, being authentic to yourself that you actually love this, and deep work. Those are competitive advantages now.
Wow. David, thank you so much for these golden insights. And now on that note, thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in on this episode. And with that said, stay curious, stay informed, and don't hesitate to take your first steps into the AI landscape. Until next time, and keep tuning in for more interesting discussions. David, thank you so much once again for sharing all of your golden nuggets of wisdom. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.